Thank you. First of all, thank you, Nikki, for pulling this together. Like you said, nobody's profiting off of this, but this was an awesome thing that you did. So kudos to you. And hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for participating today. I'm really excited and honored to be here. And I know everybody's waiting to hear from the NASA people in a couple of minutes, so I'll try to be as engaging as they will probably be, just to keep you entertained. I'm the warm-up for the NASA team, but looking forward to that. I am here today to talk about social media accessibility. And it's probably not something we all think about very much, but I hope after this presentation, you're a little bit encouraged to start thinking about it. And we're gonna hope that my share screen works. Full disclosure, I work for Cisco, the company that makes WebEx. I know how to use WebEx. I'm learning how to use Zoom. So let's see if I can make this work. And share PowerPoint. I also have slides. I'm not cool enough to not have slides. Give me 1 second, working out the kinks. PowerPoint, share. Give me 1 second. Thanks for your flexibility. Okay, that's not working. Nick, are you still there? Helps. Let me see if this will work. Can you all see it now?
I can see your slides.
Can you see my slides? Yay! Woohoo! Technical difficulties. I'm going into slideshow mode, so hopefully you'll be able to see it. Got it. Okay, so I'm going to give you 7 tips to level up your social media. And the great thing about these social tips is it also makes your social media accessible. And in this world right now, is anybody, you can give me some hearts if you're answering this question, because I'm going to give you hearts virtually if you're asking yourself this question. Is my social media content inclusive? And probably your answer is, I don't have time to think about this. I have to figure out my crisis comms plan. I have to make sure that my paid spend is not offending people. I have to make sure that my editorial calendar is up to date to make sure that I'm responding to what's happening in the world. Probably no one ever asked themselves this question. And that's fair. As social media people, as marketers, we have a lot of things to think about. Who has time to ask this question? But the good news is that if you just go back to your great social media practices, I like to call it social media 101, the things we forget when we get busy and life happens. Accessible social is just good social. And so if you keep that good social in mind, the benefit is that it's also accessible. Interestingly enough, I work for Cisco, the IT company, not the food company, not the wrapper. And my team just worked with the Cisco social governance team to build best practices for accessibility into our company guidelines. We're a 70,000 person company. I don't know if you know how hard it is to get some things changed sometimes in any company, but that was just a super thing that Cisco worked with my team on, and we're really excited about it. And the great thing is people are accepting them because they're just good social practices. I forgot to mention that on every slide, if you look down, you'll see my Twitter and Insta handle. Also, the We Are Cisco handle is the handle my team runs if you want to see how we implement some of these tactics. And of course, I've got our hashtag in there because I want you all to tweet and gram and post and just talk about how awesome this is and any takeaways that you have that you can share. Again, this is all about sharing and just bringing the community together. So even if somebody's not watching on the broadcast, if you have something that you find really interesting, share it out to your network. We'll respond to all the tweets as I can when I'm done. I'm unfortunately not able to double task. I can't do 2 things at once. I can't chew gum and walk at the same time, but I'll get to those tweets and any questions. Just so you know, here's some data for you, some stats. 30%, that's a third of Facebook users globally identify as being differently abled. Can you imagine how many people you are leaving out of your social media content strategy if you're leaving out a third of Facebook users globally? And 285 million people are visually impaired globally. So these are just some stats to further what I'm about to tell you. This is a picture of me. Now, I know, Nikki, you've got your Michigan shirt on, and I'm not trying to start anything here, but this is me in my UVA shirt last March. March Madness was actually happening last year, and UVA, which is where I went to school, was playing, and we had made it to the top 8, the Elite 8. And I was rooting for them, but if you notice, I have a cast on my arm. And that's because I live here in the Gulf Coast of Florida, and in March, it's beautiful weather, and I was out riding my bike, and the sidewalk jumped up and bit me and broke my elbow. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But for 6 weeks, I could not type. All right, everybody think about what it would be like to be a marketer and not be able to type for 6 weeks. My team had this running joke that it was like a scavenger hunt, trying to figure out what I was saying because I was using voice recognition software, which is an accessibility software. I only had to use it for 6 weeks. There are people who need accessibility help with content all the time. But I think this was the universe's way of preparing me for my summer intern last year. Her name is Mary. Hi, Mary, if you're out there watching. And she was blind. And she was working on a social media team. And she explained to our team how much she could not interact with because we weren't following those good social media practices. So I think my situation was just a preamble for what I was going to learn last summer. I think poor Mary, I learned more than she learned from me. She says that's not the case, but I don't know. She taught our team a lot. The first thing she taught us was to use camel case hashtags. If you don't know what camel case is, it's also known as cap case, which is capitalizing the first letter in every word in a hashtag. Now, I've modified my deck a little bit today to sort of have a little fun with the situation we find ourselves. And here's an example. If you just think about good social media, which of these 2 hashtags is easier to read? If you're on Facebook, give me a thumbs up if you think the first one is easier to read, and give me a heart if you think the second one is easier to read. And I'm betting we're seeing a lot of hearts. Think of all of your social media users and how fast things move in news feeds across all the social platforms. Think about how much time you have to capture your audience's attention. And if you can just do this simple thing that makes it easier for them to read your hashtag, you can get that metric of attention way faster. Now, it takes a couple seconds to figure out the first one, which is wash your freaking hands. But if you capitalize the first letter of each word, it's just easier to read. Here's the bonus. It's also accessible. So if you are a person who is visually impaired and you are using a screen reader to interact with content on the web, your screen reader pauses wherever it sees a capital letter. So a person who is visually impaired would be able to understand that this hashtag says, wash your freaking hands. If they didn't have the caps in it, that screen reader is going to read it as wash your freaking hands. Now, they'll figure out what you're saying, but it just takes them more time because they have to interpret it. Same as a general user. You just want to make sure that they can get the gist of your content as quickly as possible. So cap case or camel case hashtags are just a super easy thing to do. But here's another benefit to you. It helps you in a PR crisis. I'm just going to leave this here for a minute. I'm sure everybody's brain goes the same place mine does. What's that hashtag look like to you? And would camel case have solved that problem? Now, I think that Amazon did this on purpose for Amazon's hit car show. But again, if they did it on purpose, the conversation is happening around the wrong thing. You're getting PR, but are they talking about the show? So this is one funny example. The biggest and most famous example that probably most of us have seen was when Susan Boyle, who won America's Got Talent, dropped her album. Susan, album party. Where did your brains go? Where did your brains go? And you think you would learn from this as a social media tribe of people, but oh no. Then Ed Sheeran dropped an album and had a Sheeran album party. So now you can see how this is just good social. It's just a good social practice. but it's also accessible, and that's the bonus. So you don't have to think about, is my hashtag accessible? You just have to think, am I using good hashtag etiquette? Okay, next tip, next up for us is emojis. I'm a big fan of emojis. My team put a LinkedIn post up a few months ago, and the only thing really different about the content that we had different than what we had done before is we used an emoji, which was the woman dancing in a red dress. And we just got off the charts metrics. And we asked LinkedIn, we're like, what did we do with this post that was so much better? And they said, we think you used an emoji. So I'm all for emoji using. Again, I've modified my presentation today to, have a little fun in the situation we're in. If you're talking about this microbe and you're in your tweet, let's say, and you're going to use 5 microbes because you're really talking about what's happening in today's world. If, again, you think about a good social media practice, you want to make your content as easy to visually ingest as you possibly can. So my argument here is you could probably get away with 1 or 2 microbes. The same with the doctor. You could probably get away with 1 or 2 of them. We all love a good emoji, and I'm sure you want to use 50 emojis. Let's say it's National Taco Day. You probably want 10 taco emojis. That's fine for the, know the rules to break the rules. But in this case, visually making your content as easy to consume as possible. Again, you're going for that attention metric. And so you just want to make sure you use emojis in moderation. Now, the accessibility piece of this is that if an emoji is more complicated, it makes it more annoying for someone using a screen reader. So a screen reader would read that first line of emojis as microbe, 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 microbe. That was annoying for me to say it. It's probably annoying to hear it. But if you consider more complex emojis, this one is health worker with medium dark skin tone. The screen reader will repeat that 5 times. Health worker with medium dark skin tone. Health worker with, I'm not even going to do it, y'all. I'm annoyed and I'm not even through the second one. So again, if you just make your content clean visually, it's good social. If you do that, the benefit is that it makes it accessible social. Okay. This is probably the tip, and I actually spoke on this before I learned about social media accessibility, but this is the tip that probably, if I could change one thing about the social media world, this is what I would change about it. And that is putting text on images. And we're going to have a little fun with this, text on images. I get a lot of flack for this, and I'll continue to take the flack, but I want to show you what I mean about text on images. This is a beautifully designed graphic. It's got faces, which brings you in. It makes you want to connect with the graphic. It's about this great webinar that's happening. Here are all the details. It's a beautiful graphic. As marketers, we are often concerned very much about how something looks, the beauty of it. Is this going to attract attention? It's a gorgeous image. And then you put it on social. All right, look, I've got my reading glasses on, you guys, because I'm old and I need reading glasses. How many of you need reading glasses to read the content on that image? You might be able to read the headline. If you can read that, give me some thumbs up. If you can read all the text on that image without really straining, right? 80 to 90% of your social media users are on mobile. At that point, my argument is you have to design for mobile only and not mobile first. That's pretty much everyone. And I have a joke that is the only people that are on desktop social are social media managers. I put that on a LinkedIn post, and I did get a little bit of pushback on that from older people who said, well, I'm on social desktop because I'm trying to keep up with the young people and what they're doing. Well, then you'd have no idea how they're interacting with your content because they are not on desktop. They are on mobile unless they are social media managers. And on mobile, you're looking to get those thumb stopping moments. If you think about how you scroll through a Twitter feed or an Instagram feed, you're using your thumb. Remember what we talked about with hashtags and emojis. You want to make your content as clean and easy to read as possible because you want people to stop their thumb for that attention metric and pay attention to what you're trying to tell them. What they're going to do in this instance is keep scrolling because they can't read the image. Now you might say to me, Carmen, they can click that image and make it bigger. Sure they can, but do they? My ask of you is to go into your Twitter metrics and see how many people are clicking on an image to make it bigger. So when you're designing this great content and you have these awesome editorial calendars, stop worrying so much about the perfect look and worry about, am I putting it on the channel in the way that people can instantly see it? I get tired of the statistic that says people have a less attention span than a goldfish. I get really tired of that. It makes us sound really stupid. It's not that we have low attention spans, it's that a lot of things are competing for our attention. And so you want to make your content a competitor, and the best way to do that is to make your content easy to read. Plus, text on images is not accessible. A screen reader, for someone who is visually impaired, there's no way that a screen reader can read text on image because it's embedded in the image. Now, we're going to go into a minute some ways you can get around this, but again, you're going to want to make your content as visually simple as you can. There is alt text. Good news, this is pretty much entirely an accessibility tip. But if you take that funny screenshot that I had earlier from not using camel case in the hashtag, and you wanted to put it on LinkedIn, for example, you'll notice that when you post this to LinkedIn, you'll see something that says add alt text. If you click that, all you have to do is add a description to the image to let someone who is visually impaired know what's on the image. Twitter also lets you do this. If anybody knows anybody that works at Twitter, can we just ask them that you not have to turn this on? That's kind of a shame that you have to physically take an action to go into your settings under accessibility and turn on compose image descriptions to be able to write alt text. It should just be automatic, Twitter. Let's just do the right thing. But you do have to go in on Twitter and turn it on. If you're using schedulers like Sprinkler and Hootsuite, I'm sure there are more. These are the two I know about that actually let you add alt text when you schedule, because most of us are not going authentically into the channel to schedule our content. We're usually using a scheduler to help us in our life because we need schedulers. But these two I do know do it. If you know of others, tweet them to me. I'll add them to my list. The good news is that this is brand new. Twitter just turned this ability on to add alt text to your animated GIFs because that's fun. It lets people who are visually impaired now engage with your animated GIFs. So they just added this ability. Unfortunately, you still have to go into your settings and turn it on. But once you turn it on, you can add alt text to your GIFs. Another thing that you can do to make your content a little more accessibility is add image descriptions on Insta. Now, I'll show you in a minute how you can do this through Instagram. Again, if anybody knows anybody that works on the Insta platform or over at Facebook, tell them that it's a little hard to add alt text to an Instagram post. But if you look at this post for my team's We Are Cisco account, you will see that we have added hashtag accessibility and hashtag A11Y, which stands for ally. And we have added an image description here. This gives you multiple benefits. First, with the hashtag accessibility, that community now knows that your brand has content they can engage with. Two, it then tells them in your content where that accessibility text is. Three, I don't know if you all have heard the news, but Gen Z and millennials want to engage with companies that stand for something. And so the added benefit is that you've now shown that inclusivity is something that matters to your brand. There are all kinds of great social media benefits to adding alt text, especially on Insta using photo descriptions. If you're doing your own posting within Instagram. How you turn on alt text is by the time you've written your caption and added your location, you'll see at the bottom there advanced settings. If you go to advanced settings, you can write alt text and you can put the alt text there, but you can see how many extra steps this is. And we've already talked about as social media people, how we don't have time for all this extra step stuff. So the easier way to do it, especially on Instagram, is to add photo descriptions in add text in your photo descriptions. Next up, a good tip is to design for the channel. What do I mean by design for the channel? Well, most people expect to see a square image on Instagram. They expect a horizontal image on Twitter and LinkedIn. They expect vertical images in stories. If you think about accessibility as a wide range, as a large spectrum, this will help you understand this concept. Think of a wheelchair ramp. A wheelchair ramp is built specifically so people who are in wheelchairs can get into a building. Who else gets the benefit of having a wheelchair ramp? Maybe a mom with a stroller. Maybe someone who's temporarily on crutches. Maybe you're just tired and you don't want to take the steps, or your knees hurt. Accessibility is the same. It's a large spectrum. So if you have someone with attention deficit disorder or OCD or PTSD, sometimes they need the safety of understanding that they're going to get what they expect on the channel where they are. So if you design for the channel, it helps accessibility-wise, but it also helps you. How does it help you? Remember, you're trying to design your content in a way that gets you the most attention in the quickest way, because you're competing for attention. If you think that you work for a company like mine, like Cisco, and when we're in social, our competitors are our business competitors, you're entirely off base. We're competing with Dunkin' Donuts. We're competing with Thoughts of Dog. We're competing with Cute Emergency. Like, these are the things competing for people's attention. You have to make sure that you present your content in a way that gets you the most attention in the easiest way. How many people, let's see some hearts on the Facebook Live, if you all have seen people who are still putting horizontal photos in their Instagram stories and you just want to scream when you see it. I would give like 60 hearts right now. Like, I'm not turning my phone for you, people. I'm just clicking right out of your story. I'm not turning my phone. That's an extra step. Again, designing for the way the channel is intended helps you get more attention on your content. Now, I'm going to say something else about specifically Twitter images. Twitter crops your image to a horizontal layout with zero input from you on how they crop the image. There is a Twitter account. I'm not going to call out a specific name, but you might be able to guess. Their entire reason for being on Twitter is to get women to run for office and to change the shape of politics. But they don't crop their images for Twitter. They use vertical images on Twitter. Twitter then crops it for them. They have zero control over how Twitter crops it. And for a woman empowerment channel, they're cropping it to their chest. I have begged and pleaded and said, please let me help you know how to crop your images. But that's how important it is for you as social media managers to make sure that you're presenting your content in the way that it's presented to your users. I don't know if you all noticed this when I showed you this Twitter image the first time. Anybody notice that the poor guy who was on the webinar, his face got mostly cut off? This is why. Because they didn't design for Twitter. Twitter basically decided that that guy wasn't important in the webinar and they were going to cut his face off. This is my public service announcement to you. Twitter made this change almost a year ago now, but really didn't roll it out widely, and it's not widely known. The Twitter image size used to be a 2-to-1 ratio. The understanding was that it was a 1024 by 512 pixel image. They changed this. They made it widescreen. It's now a 16:9 ratio. So if you're not making sure that you're cropping your photos to that 16:9, things are getting cut off. Words, especially if you're putting text on images, is another reason not to do it. Words are getting cut off. So that's my PSA for you today. That has zero to do with accessibility and everything to do with just you knowing what the best size for Twitter would be. Next up is link descriptive text. I'm checking my time to make sure I'm not running over. Not yet, yay. Link descriptive text. So if you're writing web content or blog content, this is also really important. Click here is your nemesis. Click here is the wrong thing to put as a link, click out on your blog or your website. And what I mean is to find out more, click here. You've written this great blog post about this, wonderful product, and to find out more, click here. Well, as a user, what am I going to get when I click here? All you've said is click here. Now, the best practice when you're writing link text is to make it short, sweet, and actionable. Here's how you can do that in a different way. Read the full report. Short, quick, actionable. But I know what I'm going to get when I click on the link. So that's what makes this just a good social practice. Read the full report. If you are a person who uses a screen reader and you are visually impaired, to make it easier to ingest all of the content in a blog post or a web page at one time, what a screen reader will do is take links and separate them out from the text so you can read the story, and then it brings you back to the links to then engage in that way. If every single link on your website or blog says click here, how in the world would they know how that fits into the blog or the website you've just written? So again, it's just a good social media practice. It gets you more clicks on that link, but it's also an accessibility best practice. We're gonna hope this video works. I'm not sure, it's built into my deck, so we're just gonna roll with the technology today and see how it works. But the last tip I have for you is video captions. I think I've given Zoom permission to hear my audio on my video. If you can't hear the audio, bear with me because it will make the same point that I'm going to make in a moment. But I'm gonna play this video. I mentioned to you that I went to the University of Virginia, national championships from last year. Here is a trivia question for you. Since they're not playing the March Madness tournament this year, UVA will be the only school in history to have the national title for 2 years, having only played in one championship. So if that ever comes up and you're on Jeopardy, congratulations, I've just given you the answer. But this is a video from the University of Virginia, and I just want to play it for you. And again, if you can't hear it, stick with me. It's a short video, and we'll talk about it after. So whether you could hear the sound or you couldn't hear the sound, it's the same exact tip that I'm about to give you. The soundtrack of social is silence. Videos play in the newsfeed of every major social channel automatically with no sound. If you don't have captions in your videos, are people turning the sound on to engage with your content? Look at your metrics. Most of them aren't. Tip, ask them to turn the sound on, and I bet you'll see your sound on metrics go by 2 and 3 times. But the soundtrack of social is silence. People cannot engage with your video content if they can't hear it or they're not being incentivized to turn it on. Put captions in your videos, and that makes your users, again, be able to give you their awareness or their attention really, really easily. And if they're super engaged, they'll turn the sound on and engage with your content. Okay, here's a recap because I'm slightly over, but I'm gonna still leave time for questions. Recap, use camel case in your hashtags. use emojis and moderation. Please, again, if I could change one thing about social, please think through images on text. It's so much better for your content if you capture them with a strong image and put the text that you need in the text field. Remember alt text options and using photo descriptions on Insta. Design for the channel, write better descriptive linked text, and include video captions. And if we can do this together as a community, all of us are going to see our metrics get better, but then we're all going to be able to serve a community that is often ignored and forgotten. And if we can do that, then mission accomplished, right? So thanks for your time. I'm done, Nikki, and I don't know if I should go look at Facebook and see the questions or how that works, but help me out.